Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we give you that ultimate knowledge shortcut. We take, well, stacks of sources, articles, interviews, deep research, and we boil down decades of work into just the essential stuff you need.
That's the mission.
Exactly. So you can be, really well informed without spending weeks reading. Today, we're diving deep into the career of filmmaker Barry Levinson, an American great.
He really is. And he's fascinating because, as you said, his resume, it just doesn't fit into one neat box.
Right.
He's not just a director. He's a screenwriter, a successful one, a really prolific producer, and something we'll definitely get into, a key figure in shaping modern TV drama.
Okay, so our goal today.
We want to distill the key phases of his work, figure out, what holds it all together because it seems so varied,
Right.
and maybe find some surprising facts along the way. There are definitely a few.
All right, let's unpack that a bit. We're talking about the guy who directed Rain Man, Academy Award Best Director, 1988. I mean, that film was massive, everywhere.
A global phenomenon, absolutely.
But then you look just 6 years earlier, and he's got deep roots in writing. So deep, he was an uncredited co-writer on Tootsie.
Yeah, Dustin Hoffman's huge hit.
Which is just wild, that range right there. From basically script doctoring a major comedy to directing this epic award-winning drama.
That's the Levinson touch, really, that duality. He can do the intensely personal, the character-driven stuff, but also tackle these huge subjects: war, crime, politics.
Even in the bigger films, it often comes down to the dialogue, doesn't it? Those small moments between characters.
Exactly. So we're going to trace that. We'll start with his Baltimore roots, where Diner came from, then move through the big hits, like you mentioned, Rain Man, but also Good Morning, Vietnam.
Zeitgeist films.
Totally.
Yeah.
And then we'll look at him as a satirist, especially with Wag the Dog.
And you mentioned TV. We absolutely have to cover that. His production company, the shows he launched, it's a huge part of the story.
Absolutely fundamental. Change the game.
So for you listening, this is your shortcut. Your way to really get a handle on a filmmaker who shaped so much of American cinema and TV for decades. Okay, let's start right at the beginning. The origin story. Because Levinson's own life feels pretty cinematic sometimes. Barry Lee Levinson, born April 6, 1942, Baltimore, born and bred.
And Baltimore. It's not just a backdrop for him, it's everything. It's the cultural DNA, the emotional core of so much of his work.
It's his anchor.
Totally.
Yeah.
He grew up in the Forest Park neighborhood. His dad, Irvin, was in the furniture and appliance business.
Yeah.
Tough sales job. His mom was Violet, or V.
And the family background.
Russian Jewish descent. And that specific experience, growing up Jewish in, mid-century Baltimore, the immigrant story, assimilation that really feeds into his most personal films, like Avalon.
What gets me is you often see these hugely successful creative people, and they have this very driven academic background. Levinson, not so much.
Not at all. The sources are really clear on this. He was, let's just say, not a star student.
You're being kind. The sources say terrible student.
Okay, yeah. Terrible. Maybe even abysmal in his own telling. He graduated Forest Park Senior High in 1960. He tried broadcast journalism, bounced between Baltimore Junior College and American University down at D.C.
And there's that famous statistic.
The one that says it all. All right. At one point, he ranked 460th in a class of 460.
Dead last. Literally.
Dead last. So it wasn't about smarts, clearly. It seems like he just didn't connect with that formal, structured learning environment.
He was more interested in the real world, the stuff happening around him.
I think so. The way people talked, the local scene, the hangouts, that was his real education. College structure just wasn't clicking. He dropped out of junior college after, 5 months.
Then what?
Then comes the hustle phase. He tried selling used cars. That's a classic.
Gotta make a buck.
Right. He even thought about law school for a minute. Imagine being a tax lawyer, making bank. That apparently didn't go well either.
Didn't stick.
Nope. It wasn't until he went back to journalism, ended up at American University, that something seemed to resonate a bit more. But yeah, his early path was all about trying things, pivoting, finding his way outside the usual channels.
And that hustle eventually takes him to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Which is the classic move, right? Go west, young man.
Yep. Moved out there to act, to write, started doing comedy routines. Pretty standard Hollywood dream story so far.
But this is where we hit that really wild piece of trivia, the roommate story.
Oh, yeah. This is where it gets kind of mind-blowing. It really shows you what a strange melting pot L.A. could be back then. Levinson, the guy who'd go on to make these heartfelt Baltimore movies, shared an apartment with George Jung.
George Jung, the George Jung from the movie Blow.
The very same. The guy who became, a massive cocaine smuggler in the 70s and 80s. a key player for the Medellin cartel for a while.
So Barry Levinson, future Oscar winner, is roommates with George Jung, future international drug kingpin. That's
Wow.
hard to picture.
Isn't it? Just imagine the conversations in that apartment. It says so much about who was drawn to L.A. back then. All kinds of ambitions, all kinds of characters, some more legitimate than others.
You have to think that being around someone like Jung, even early on, must have given him some perspective on, well, unorthodox characters.
There had to. Fed the writer's eye, no doubt. But professionally, Levinson stuck to the slightly more legal path of comedy writing. Before he directed, he really made his name writing for television.
Right, the variety show circuit, that was his training ground.
Exactly. He wrote for the Marty Feldman Comedy Machine, the Loman and Barkley Show, and, importantly, shows like the Tim Conway Show and the legendary Carol Burnett Show.
That's serious comedy boot camp.
Oh, absolutely. Writing sketch comedy forces you to be incredibly economical. You need jokes, character, setup, payoff, boom, boom, boom,
Right.
in minutes. That training, that discipline, you can see it in his early screenplays. They're tight. The dialogue snaps.
And that TV work opened doors for film writing.
Definitely. It led straight to collaborating with Mel Brooks.
Yeah.
That's a huge step. He co-wrote Silent Movie in '76 and High Anxiety in '77.
And didn't he pop up in High Anxiety?
He did. Little cameo as a bellboy.
Yeah.
Though he was right in the thick of the Brooks comedy machine. Learning about satire, physical comedy, the whole deal.
That comedy background gave him credibility, but then he pivoted again, showing he could handle drama.
Right. Proved he could write, period. Which let him tackle something much heavier. And Justice for All. The 1979 courtroom drama with Al Pacino. He co-wrote that script with Valerie Curtin.
And got an Oscar nomination for it.
Yep, Best Original Screenplay nomination. So now he's shown range, comedy, intense drama, social commentary.
Which leads us back to Tootsie, the uncredited work.
Exactly. This is that high-level script doctoring. The kind of work you only get called in for if you're really trusted. Being an uncredited writer on a massive hit like Tootsie in '82.
It means the biggest players, like Gustin Hoffman, the studios, they knew Levinson could fix things, could polish his script, make it work.
It cemented his reputation. He was a serious creative force even before he stepped behind the camera himself.
So all that writing, all that experience culminates in 1982. He finally gets his shot to direct, and the film is Diner.
And what a debut. Diner wasn't just his first film, it was like his mission statement.
He wrote it too.
Wrote it himself. Got another Oscar nomination for that screenplay, Best Original. And right away, it established him as this auteur of place, of Baltimore.
It's basically just guys talking in a diner,
Right.
but it feels so much bigger.
It is. It's just conversations.
Yeah.
These young guys in 1959 Baltimore hanging out, talking about girls, music, football, commitment, wrestling with growing up.
Yeah.
But the dialogue feels so real, so specific.
It really captured something authentic about male friendship, that sort of rambling, funny, sometimes kind of desperate talk. People call it one of the first real hangout movies.
Totally. And crucially, Diner kicked off what became known as his Baltimore tetralogy, 4 films exploring his hometown.
Okay, so this tetralogy, understanding this is key to understanding his core artistic voice, you're saying.
I think so. It's where he digs deepest into his own experience. Diner was the first, looking at that transition to adulthood.
Then came the second one, Tin Men.
Tin Men, yeah, 1987.
Yeah.
Set a bit later, in the early 60s, focuses on these rival aluminum siding salesmen. Richard Dreyfuss, Danny DeVito. Great chemistry.
What was that one exploring?
Petty rivalry, sure, but also consumer culture starting to boom, the changing face of work, blue-collar ambition. Again, very specific Baltimore texture.
Okay, that's 2. What's the third?
Third is Avalon from 1990, and this one is maybe his most emotional, most sweeping of the 4.
This is the immigrant family story.
Exactly. Tracks this Jewish family from Eastern Europe settling in Baltimore, and you see the generations drift apart, traditions fading as America changes them. It's incredibly nostalgic.
And it had Elijah Wood, right? Really young.
Yeah, key early role for him. It's a beautiful film.
And the fourth one?
The fourth came quite a bit later, Liberty Heights in 1999. That one loops back to the 50s, exploring the racial and religious tensions in Baltimore during that era.
So across all 4, even though the stories are different, the common threads are Baltimore, obviously.
Baltimore, yes. But also that intense focus on dialogue, how people actually talk, the power of memory, of nostalgia, and how people are shaped by their very specific time and place.
That personal, regional focus was his foundation, but the success he had, especially with Diner, allowed him to start working on a much bigger scale in the 80s.
Oh yeah, this is when he really ascends, leads right to his biggest critical and commercial success.
Which has to be Rain Man, 1988.
No question. Rain Man. Dustin Hoffman again as Raymond the autistic savant, Tom Cruise as Charlie the selfish brother. Road trip movie, sibling drama.
Yeah.
It was a tough project to get made.
Levinson wasn't the first director attached, was he?
No, he came in after others had left. He stabilized it, found the heart of it, and the result, I mean, it was massive. It wasn't just a hit movie. It genuinely changed the public conversation about autism.
Brought it right into the mainstream.
Yeah. In a huge, empathetic way.
Yeah.
And the awards followed. 4 Oscars, Best Picture, and Best Director for Levinson himself. That really put him on the map globally.
And he couldn't resist the little cameo, right?
He popped in as a doctor for a second.
Yeah.
Just shows his comfort level, even on a huge production like that. And its impact wasn't just domestic. It won the Golden Bear at the Berlin Film Festival. Top prize there. Huge international validation.
This period also shows his skill with major stars. Managing big talents, often intense ones.
Definitely. Look at his work with Robert Redford. Levinson directed Redford and the Natural back in '84, that iconic baseball movie.
Beautiful film, mythic almost.
Yeah. And then, that respect was clearly mutual because a decade later, Redford directed Quiz Show. And who did he cast as the TV host? Dave Garroway.
Levinson.
Barry Levinson, the actor. That kind of role reversal, directing someone then being directed by them, that's pretty rare. Speaks volumes about collaboration.
And then there's the Robin Williams connection.
Right. Good morning. Vietnam in 1987, another massive hit, another defining role for its star.
That must have been a challenge directing Williams in that role. Adrian Cronauer, so much improvisation.
Oh, absolutely. You have to create a structure that lets Williams fly, but still tells the story, deals with the seriousness of the Vietnam setting. It's a real balancing act.
But they pulled it off. The film was huge.
Huge. And they clearly clicked, because they worked together again on Toys in '92, which was, well, Toys was ambitious.
A bit strange.
Bit strange, yeah. Dark fantasy, didn't quite land the same way.
Yeah.
And then they did Man of the Year in 2006, the political comedy. But that initial collaboration on Good Morning Vietnam showed Levinson could handle these absolute powerhouses and get incredible performances. Hashtag Tech 5 feet, genre mastery, satire, and production power. Okay, so as we hit the 1990s, Levinson really shifts gears again. He proves he's not just the Baltimore guy anymore. He becomes this master of genre.
Yeah, the versatility is pretty stunning. He can do historical epics, political thrillers, whatever the story demands.
Exactly. Think about the jump. He makes the very personal, nostalgic Avalon in 1990. Then just 1 year later, 1991, he directs Bugsy.
Warren Beatty as Bugsy Siegel. Big, glamorous, violent, totally different scale.
Totally different. It's a prestige Hollywood crime epic. Needed that scope, that polish, and he nailed it. Bugsy got 10 Oscar nominations, won 2.
So he showed he could handle the intimate, dialogue-driven stuff like Diner, but also command this big, complex period filmmaking.
Precisely. But then maybe the film from this era that feels the most relevant now is Wag the Dog, 1997.
Oh, absolutely. That film became like instant shorthand for manufactured reality political spin.
It was incredibly prescient. The whole premise, a spin doctor, Robert De Niro, hires a Hollywood producer, Dustin Hoffman, to fake a war in Albania to distract from a presidential sex scandal.
And it came out right before the Monica Lewinsky scandal broke.
Literally weeks before. It was uncanny. Suddenly this sharp political satire felt disturbingly real. Like a documentary almost.
It really cemented him as a master satirist, right? Able to take these heavy political ideas but make them darkly funny.
And the world noticed. It won the Silver Bear, the special jury prize, at the Berlin Film Festival that year. So international recognition for that specific satirical edge.
When you look at his output during the 90s and even into the 2000s, the sheer variety is wild.
It really is. It's not just prestige dramas. He's jumping all over the map. You've got Young Sherlock Holmes way back in '85, which was more of a family adventure.
Right, the Spielberg production.
Then Disclosure in '94, that corporate sexual harassment thriller based on the Creighton novel. Very tense, very topical then.
Sleepers in '96, the legal drama with that heavy-hitting cast, De Niro, Hoffman, Pitt, Bacon.
Dark stuff. And then Sphere in '98, another Creighton adaptation. Deep-sea sci-fi thriller with Hoffman again, Sharon Stone, Samuel L. Jackson.
Wait, the guy who made Tin Men also made Sphere. That's quite the leap.
Isn't it? It's almost like 2 different directors.
Yeah.
And it continues. Bandits in 2001, the heist comedy with Bruce Willis and Billy Bob Thornton. Envy in 2004, that quirky black comedy with Ben Stiller and Jack Black.
It suggests he's driven more by the story itself, the challenge of a particular narrative, than by sticking to one specific style or, brand.
I think that's exactly right. He's interested in telling good stories, period, whatever genre they happen to fall into.
And while he's directing all these varied films, he's also building power behind the scenes, becoming a major producer.
Yes, this is crucial. He forms Baltimore Pictures with Mark Johnson. That partnership was key.
Why was forming the company so important?
Control. Independence, basically. By producing successful films, some quite commercial, they generated revenue and clout. That gave them the freedom to develop and back projects they really believed in, maybe smaller or riskier ones.
Like Avalon.
Exactly. Avalon was their first production under the Baltimore Pictures banner. Even after Johnson left in '94, Levinson's name stayed on as producer or executive producer for some pretty huge movies.
And not just small art films. You mentioned The Perfect Storm. He was an EP on that.
Executive producer, yeah. Wolfgang Peterson directed it. Huge disaster movie in 2000. Totally different from, say, Diner.
That's pure spectacle.
Pure spectacle. But his producing credits also include comedy sequels, like Analyze That in 2002, De Niro and Billy Crystal Back Again.
Right, the neurotic mob boss.
And even complex literary adaptations like Possession in 2002, based on that dense A.S. Byatt novel. So the producing side shows a real strategic mind too, using commercial success to enable artistic range.
Speaking of ambition, let's touch on projects that didn't quite happen under his direction. The source mentions a Whitey Bulger film he was developing.
Yeah, this sounded fascinating. Based on the book by Dick Lair and Gerard O'Neill, it wasn't just going to be about Whitey, the gangster.
It was bigger than that.
Much bigger. Levinson wanted to tackle the whole ecosystem of corruption around Bulger. His brother, Billy Bulger, the powerful politician. The complicit FBI agent, John Connolly. Even the history of the FBI's Witness Protection Program under J. Edgar Hoover.
Wow, like a sprawling American epic about crime and institutional failure.
Exactly. He eventually left that project. It got made later by someone else as Black Mass. But just the idea of him tackling that shows his continued interest in these huge, complex, multi-layered American stories.
Okay, so his film career alone is incredibly varied. But then there's television. If his film work didn't seal the deal on his versatility, his impact on TV certainly does.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
We have to spend time here because his influence on television is profound and maybe sometimes gets overshadowed by the movie Oscars.
He formed a company with Tom Fontana, right?
Yes, the Levinson-Fontana Company. That partnership was critical. They really were pioneers, pushing network TV and later cable towards the kind of dark, complex, character-driven adult drama that we now take for granted.
They were behind Homicide, Life on the Street, NBC in 1993 to 99.
Homicide was revolutionary for network TV. Based on David Simon's book, the guy who later did The Wire, Homicide felt real in a way network cop shows just weren't. Incredibly gritty, realistic. It didn't wrap everything up neatly in an hour. Cases went unsolved. It focused on the detectives, the psychological toll, the messy reality of crime in Baltimore. Back to Baltimore again, but seen through a much harsher lens.
And it looked different, too, didn't it? That shaky camera style.
Totally. That verite-style jump cuts, handheld camera, shooting in low light. It felt urgent, authentic. And Levinson directed the pilot, won an Emmy for it. Outstanding. Directing for a drama series for that first episode, gone for good. He set the visual tone for a whole new kind of TV.
So Homicide broke ground on network, then they moved to cable.
Then they went to HBO and basically invented the modern HBO drama with Oz.
The prison drama. Intense doesn't even begin to cover it.
Right. 1997 to 2003. Oz took the realism and moral ambiguity of Homicide and just cranked it way, way up. Violence, complex characters, long arcs, existential dread. It was brutal.
And it was HBO's first original hour-long drama series, wasn't it?
It was. It really paved the way for The Sopranos, The Wire, everything that followed. Levinson and Fontana showed what was possible on premium cable, pushing boundaries on content, on violence, on long-form storytelling where choices had real, lasting consequences.
So they didn't just make shows, they fundamentally changed the landscape.
Absolutely. They helped build the foundation for this golden age of television we've been living through.
And Levinson is still involved in TV at a high level, right?
Still is. Just recently, in 2021, he was co-executive producer on Dope Sick for Hulu, the miniseries about the opioid crisis. He directed the first 2 episodes, too.
Tackling another huge, complex, very contemporary American issue.
Exactly. Same instinct, just adapted for the streaming era. And he's even popped up acting in TV sometimes. He played a judge, uncredited, in a short-lived series called The Jury.
He just seems willing to engage with every facet of the process, writing, directing, producing, even acting.
Seems like it. Which brings us to another medium entirely. The guy wrote a novel.
Right. 66, published in 2003. Let me guess the setting.
Go on.
Baltimore, 1960s.
Bingo. Semi-autobiographical,
Sure.
set in Baltimore in the 60s. It's his touchstone. Film, TV, novel. When he goes deep into character and memory, he always seems to find his way back home.
He even dabbled in early digital stuff, directing those Seinfeld and Superman ads for American Express.
Yeah, the webisodes back in 2004.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool, right? Seinfeld, Superman, Amex, early web content. He was right there at that intersection. Shows he's adaptable, willing to play in different sandboxes.
And he directed a documentary, too.
Hollywood, yeah, in 2009. Focused on the Democratic and Republican national conventions in 2008. Bringing that sharp observational eye, maybe the wag the dog eye, to real-world political theater.
It's important, though, to circle back to writing. Because despite the directing Oscar, the producing, the TV work, people in the industry consistently recognized him first and foremost as a writer.
That's a really key point. His foundation is the script. He got the Distinguished Screenwriter Award from the Austin Film Festival in 2004.
And then the big one from the Writers Guild.
The really big one, the Laurel Award for Screenwriting Achievement in 2010. That's their Lifetime Achievement Award. It says, look, no matter what else you've done, we recognize you as one of the great screenwriters.
Okay, let's try and wrap our heads around the sheer volume of recognition here. His career is just loaded with awards, both critical and commercial.
Yeah, the trophy case must be pretty full. Just looking at the Academy Awards alone, his films, collectively, have racked up something like 34 nominations and 6 wins. That's huge.
Including his own Best Director win for Rain Man, puts him in pretty elite company.
Absolutely. But remember, he got his Oscar bona fides first as a writer, nominated twice for Best Original Screenplay personally.
Right, for Diner in 82, that amazing dialogue. And way back in 79 for Anne. And Justice for All for its moral weight. He really did launch from the page.
And the industry guilds reflect that duality.
Yeah.
He won the DGA, the Directors Guild Award for Rain Man. That's the directors recognizing one of their own at the highest level.
But the writers did too. He won the WGA Writers Guild Award for Best Original Screenplay for Avalon.
Think about that. Avalon. That quiet, personal immigrant family story. In 1990, it wins Best Original Screenplay against all the big studio movies that year. That tells you how powerful that writing was, how emotionally resonant.
It's that consistent quality across different kinds of projects, and internationally too. You mentioned the Golden Bear in Berlin for Rain Man.
Top prize there. Huge international prestige for a film that was also a massive commercial hit.
But he went back to Berlin later and won again, right?
For something totally different.
Yeah, won the Silver Bear, the special jury prize for Wag the Dog, for that sharp political satire. So he gets top honors for the blockbuster and for the biting commentary.
The critics recognized him too. He won Best Director from the LA Film Critics for Bugsy.
Right, so the pattern is clear. He's not easily pigeonholed. He can win major awards for the intimate Baltimore stories like Avalon, for the big Hollywood epics like Bugsy, and for the culture-shifting blockbusters like Rain Man. That range of acclaimed work is pretty remarkable. #7. Conclusion and provocative final thought. Okay, so let's try to pull this all together. We've taken this deep dive into Barry Levinson. We've seen him come from this unconventional background, the terrible student sharing digs with a future drug lord.
George Hume, yeah, still amazing.
And somehow parlay that street smarts, that hustle, into a foothold in Hollywood. Starting as a comedy writer, becoming an Oscar-winning director, then a key architect of modern prestige TV.
And what stands out, I think, is how he manages to connect the personal with the broadly relevant. He stays deeply committed to his Baltimore roots for decades, using the tetralogy to explore that world intimately.
But at the same time,
he's directing these massive American stories. Rain Man, sparking conversations about autism, Good Morning Vietnam, dealing with the war, Wag the Dog, dissecting political spin before it became, a daily news item.
he finds the humor, the history, the heart in these big, complex subjects, makes them relatable.
That seems to be his great skill, synthesizing it all.
And he keeps adapting, never just settles into one thing for too long. Which brings us to today. He's still working, right?
Still very active. Sources say he has a film called The Alto Nights, slated for 2025.
So, given that history of reinvention, from the Baltimore chronicler to the political satirist, now working in the streaming age, it makes you wonder.
Exactly. And this is the final thought we want to leave you, the listener, with. We've seen him tackle the immigrant story, war, media manipulation, the justice system, the opioid crisis. What's next?
What contemporary American theme, what overlooked genre do you think a filmmaker with his track record, his insight, might tackle to capture this particular moment we're living in?
Will he go back to Baltimore again? Or maybe turn that satirical eye towards something like, I don't know, AI, social media, influencer culture, the political divisions?
It's fascinating to think about what part of the fractured American experience might he zoom in on next.
That's the challenge he seems to set for himself again and again. And it's definitely something worth pondering. What story does Barry Levinson still need to tell?